وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. ساعت عمر من همگی غرق غم گذشت، دست مرا بگیر که آب از سرم گذشت. میخواستم که وقف تو باشم تمام عمر، دنیا خلاف آنچه که میخواستم گذشت. تا کی غروب جمعه ببینم که مادرم یه گوشه بغض کرده که این جمعه هم گذشت. یه گوشه بغض کرده که این جمعه هم گذشت. مولا جان آقا جانم یبن العسکری، مولا شمار درد دلم بی نهایت است. تعداد درد من به خدا از رقم گذشت. یبن الحسن یبن الحسن یبن الحسن. Inshallah, for the quick reappearance of Imam al-Hujjah and his well-being, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Furqan, قُلْ مَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ إِلَى رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. Say, I do not ask you any reward for it, for all the difficulties I went through. Throughout my life, I struggled to provide you with this message, to bring this message to you. I don't ask you any reward for it, except that for anyone who wants the reward that I've asked for or I'm asking for is for those who want to find a path towards their Lord. إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ يَتَّخِذَ إِلَى رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. In the last few nights, 2 nights, just a quick summary so we know where we're heading, inshallah. The first night we spoke about the school of Ashura. We spoke about the school in which, if we want to participate in and learn from, the number one thing we have to do, those of you who remember, is to purify our hearts. There's a precondition, there's a prerequisite for this course. For the school of Ashura to enter this course and learn from it and progress as a believer, as a lover of Ahlul Bayt, we have to purify our hearts. Then, last night, I mentioned a hadith in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam he announced that the strongest safety bar, the strongest handle that can save anyone at difficulties, in turmoils, during trials and tribulations, the strongest one is love for the sake of God and hatred for the sake of God. Friends with the friends of God and enemies with the enemies of God. The question that I want to ask tonight, and I want you all to pay attention to this question and the answer that I will provide. The question is, why is it that love and hatred hold such a high status and are considered the strongest safety guard for Islam and for any religion for that matter? Any religion that leads us to God, for Islam specifically, the Prophet considered the number one safety guard is love. And it's opposite, obviously. Why? Out of all the different aspects of our religion, love is the strongest and the most important aspect. Why? The answer is very simple. They say, if once a riddle is solved, in Farsi they say, Mu'amma chahal shavad, asan shavad. When a riddle is solved, then it's easy. It seems easy to everyone. Once I answer this question, all of you will agree with me that it's so obvious. And the answer is the fact that, in fact, not only Islam, everything in life is determined through love and hatred. Everything. Whether we like something, we dislike something, we want to go somewhere, we don't want to go somewhere, we like this city, we don't like this city, we like this country, we don't like this country. As kids, I don't know, those of you who remember when we were kids and watching movies, who are the bad guys and who are the good guys? Always we are trying to determine which one are we with and which one are we against. Are you for it or against it? Or are you alien? Because the third one, according to us humans, is you can't be neutral. You're either for it or against it. This is us humans. Everything in our life is determined through this love and hatred. Every decision-making process uses love and hatred. And Islam is a way of life. Islam, which is submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember the hadith that I recited last night? The fact that no one will enter heaven unless those who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submit to God. Now what the title they hold is not the issue. The issue is they submit to God, to the will of God. Not those who deny God. Not those who oppose the orders of God. So Islam, which means submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submitting to the Lord, it is the way of life in every aspect of life. It encompasses every aspect of life. And therefore, it is determined through love. And the love has to be for what? If we want to, throughout our life, gain nearness to the absolute perfection, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to God, if we want to, through our religion, become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and love everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and hate anything that is taking us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is as simple as it is. Therefore, everything in life and every aspect of our faith is determined through love for the sake of God and hatred for the sake of God. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Now I have another question. And here is the question. Now, we know that love is the determiner. The question is it possible to love someone and not try and act like them? You love someone, yet you don't want to be in any way or shape or form like them. Is it possible? That is not possible. You get people who become in love with characters, movie characters, story characters, actors, actresses, singers, I don't know, sports figures, whatever they may be. They want to wear their jersey with the name and the number. It has to have all, and if it has the signature, it's even better. That's worth hundreds or thousands, I don't know. You want to become like a certain, children, they want to become, we're all like that in a way. The costumes and all these things, trying to be like our beloved figure, whatever it may be. Two people fall in love. After a while, they start shedding off all the differences and become like one. They act like each other, they eat like each other, they talk like each other. You might not see it, they themselves don't see it. You know who sees it? People who don't see them often. I had an instance, and I won't say it was me, but maybe you figured it out. After I got married, I hadn't seen my parents for a while. And then when I was again with my parents, they saw me first, and I was with them for a while. And then my wife came, and they said, we thought you had changed so much, and now we know why. Eventually, you start molding yourself to the one who you love. The more this love is, the more you shape yourself like your beloved. The more you start giving up things that you liked before, and you start disliking them, or you start not doing them for their sake, eventually disliking them, and eventually hating these stuff, detesting them, because your beloved detests them. And that is why we have to love for God's sake and hate for God's sake. If we want to be a person, a man of God as they call it, a person who wants to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to make sure that our love and our allegiance and our loyalties are with God. That is one question. For this question, I have a story for you. It's a hadith that tells us that a man came to the Prophet. إن رجلا أتى النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم صلى على محمد اللهم صل على محمد فقال يا رسول الله. He said, O Rasulullah, or the Messenger of God, I love worshippers. أحب المصلين, those who pray. Musallin is a title for those who pray a lot. Worshippers, in other words. I love them, but I don't pray. I myself don't pray. I also love those who fast, but I myself don't fast. The Prophet looked at him and said to him, a famous saying that you look in every book of hadith, you'll find this hadith in one shape or form. The same context. He says to him, أنت مع من أحببت ولك ما اكتسبت. You are with those who you love, but you will earn the rewards for what you do. You won't earn rewards for something that you haven't done. They prayed, you didn't pray. So you're with them, which is very important. And that is the key that we are after. We want to be with these people. We want to be with the people of God. You're with them, yet you will earn the rewards for your own actions. If you pray, you earn rewards for it. You don't pray, you don't earn rewards for it. Simple. The question here is it possible that one loves those who pray, and he loves them for their prayers? He loves Musallin. Why? Because they pray. So he loves them and loves the action that they do. Yet, he never tries in his life and he never does pray. Is it possible? I don't think it's possible. In fact, it's impossible. Think about it and you'll agree. You love someone so much and you love their action. You love the musallin, the worshippers, those who pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will try. Maybe sometimes you try. Slowly, slowly, you become one of them. See what the importance of love for the sake of God is? The same applies to the hatred side. I don't want to go down that path, but you can think about the opposite. When you hate the action of oppressors, eventually if you have any kind of oppression yourself, you'll clear yourself from it. You don't want to be like that. In one of the answers that Nabiullah Isa ala nabina wa alayhi salam, Jesus, when he was asked by one of his disciples, how did you become so good? How did you get to the point that you are, that you possess such good character? You know what he said? He said, I hated the actions of the bad ones. I hated the behavior of the bad ones. That's how I became so good. That's something that I don't like. This behavior, this unjust, unfair, oppressive behavior, I don't want to be like that. Rude behavior, I don't want to be like that. Therefore, I became who I became. This is what love and hatred for the sake of God. In another story, very similar to the first one, a man comes to the Prophet and he says, Ya Rasulullah, there's a man, this time he's not talking about himself. Maybe it was him, he just didn't want to say it. So he says, there's a man that he says he loves people who pray a lot. But he only prays his obligatory prayers. Remember the first night what we discussed about obligatory versus recommended? Those of you who went with us, inshallah, can ask me afterwards. Very important, the distinction between those who just do the obligatory actions, wajibat, and those who actually endeavor to do the mustahabbat, all the recommended actions. So this man says, I only pray the wajibat. I love those who pay charity, but I only pay things that I'm obliged to pay. In the end of the month of Ramadan, I have to pay zakatul fitra, I pay it. If I have to pay khumus, I pay it. But apart from that, I don't pay charity. But I love those who do it. I love those who fast throughout the year, but I only fast when it's obligation on me, when it's obligatory. The Prophet this time says to this man, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. Everyone is with those who he is in love with. on the day of judgment you will be with them. This time he didn't tell him that you will gain rewards for what you did, because he already does pray, unlike the other guy. So the other guy was encouraged by that to actually start doing something about his love. You love them, do something about it. This is the status of love and the importance of love, through which one can get closer and closer to the beloved. And as we know, we have no love for the Prophet or all the Prophets or Ahlul Bayt because of themselves only, because they were our ancestors, or because we're related to them, or because we are called their Shia, for example. I'm called Muslim, therefore I have to love the Prophet. If that's all what it is about, that's not the love we're talking about. I'm called Shia, therefore I have to love Imam Hussein. My dad used to love him. Remember what I discussed about this? That's not what it's about. We love them because of who they are and who they represent. We love them because they get us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were so close to God. They were men of God, therefore we love them in order to get close to them. And same thing, we get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he gives us a good test for our hearts. We spoke about purifying our hearts, remember the first night? And we spoke about filling our hearts with love for the sake of God. And if there's anything that takes us away from God, we hate that. Imam Baqir gives us the test. He says, إِذَا أَرَدْتَ أَن تَعْلَمَ أَنَّ فِيكَ خَيْرًا فَانْظُرْ إِلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ. If you want to know if you're a good person, if you want to know if you have a good ending, then look at your heart. Test your heart. فإن كان يحب أهل طاعة الله ويبغض أهل معصية الله ففيك خير والله يحبك. If your heart is filled with love for those who are obedient to God, and your heart detests those who are disobedient to God, not them themselves, it's not a personal thing about them, detest their actions. So if your heart is in love with those who are obedient to God, detests those who are disobedient to God, then you are on the right path and God loves you. And this love from God is the second level of love. Because as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything and loves everything. Allahu alladhi khalaqa kulla shay'in thumma hada. There's nothing that God doesn't love. Every single creature of God, God loves those. Created out of His mercy, guided out of His mercy. He doesn't love? Don't get this wrong. This love that we speak about in Quran and in Hadith is the second level. The reciprocated love, the mutual love. Because there's the first level which God loves. It's like a father relationship, if you want to understand it better. It's like a father-son relationship. A father loves all his children. Simple. He might have a very disloyal and a very, son that very non-appreciative, does not appreciate anything, is not dutiful to his father. That son, he still loves because he's his flesh and blood. You ask mothers, and the famous poem that speaks about the mother in Arabic speaks about the mother who the son took the heart of his mother out. Eventually the heart spoke to the son when the son fell on the floor and said, "Are you okay, my dear son?" This obviously is an exaggerated story, but this is the state of parents. That's how much we love our children, even if he's on the wrong path, even if he's doing the wrong thing by me, we still love them. But there's a second degree of, a higher degree of love that we will definitely have for a dutiful, respectful, appreciative son or daughter. That's definitely not going to be the same as the other one. That is what we're discussing here. Then, on the other hand, وَإِنْ كَانَ, if your heart hates the people who are obedient to God, hates the people of God, and love the enemies of God, then there is no goodness in you, and God does not love you. In that level, God does not love you. This is a test that we have to test ourselves. If we love one another for the sake of God, if we put all the grudge, all the vengeance, all the jealousy, all this aside, and fill our hearts with love for our brothers and sisters, because we know that they are people who want to be closer to God. They made the effort and came here to what? To get closer to God. Therefore, we fill our hearts with love for all of them. If we fill our hearts with love for these people and hatred for the enemies of God, then there is good. If our hearts are filled with hatred and, due to, tribal issues, due to some political issues, differences, and all these things, we start hating, I don't like this guy, I hate this guy, Or even sometimes jealousy, this guy has taken a certain position and I would have wanted his position, and he's this and he's that, and all the things that happen in a community. And as you know, the major part is played through shaitan, our enemy, the enemy of insan. Quran says about it. Shaitan is your adu, فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًا. He's your enemy, so consider him an enemy. Meaning, be mindful of him and his plans, that he plans to divide you, plans to make you hate your own brothers in faith. If that is what's in your heart, then there's no goodness in you. That is a test that we all have to test ourselves. A very important issue that I want to raise through a story, and I want you to pay attention. I won't take much longer of your time. I want to share with you this story through which we will understand this concept of love and hatred for the sake of God even deeper and in a better way. The Prophet had a servant, his name was Thawban. So Thawban was a servant in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was very close to the Prophet. He had many narrations we have from this man, Thawban, that lived in the house of the Prophet, served in the house of the Prophet, and he became so close to the Prophet. We have many narrations from him. He says one day, as we were sitting with the Prophet, the narration is from someone else who watched what happened. He said, Thawban got up and said, Ya Rasulallah, mata qiyamus sa'a? O Prophet of God, when is the day of judgment? When is it going to happen? So he said to him, the Prophet said to him, Thawban, you're asking about the day of judgment. Have you prepared for it? You're so concerned about when is the day of judgment. Are you ready for it? Think about it. Now, he was at least asking. Many of us put it in the back of our minds as if it never will happen. Never will we die, neither will be a day of judgment. Yet we believe in the day of judgment. We believe in God, we believe in His prophets, and the day of judgment. Isn't this the core of our faith? Yet we think we're not going to die, and the day of judgment will never happen. That's one of the common things that most of us are suffering from. Anyhow, Thawban was concerned and he said, "O Rasulullah, when is the day of judgment happening?" The Prophet said to him, "Well, you're asking, are you prepared for it?" He said, "Bi-abi anta wa ummi." May my parents be sacrificed for you. May I be sacrificed for you, O Rasulullah. To be honest, I have not prepared. I haven't done extra prayers. I haven't done extra things. I haven't done much for it. But I've done something that I've heard something about it from you. He said, I have something that I know from you that should save me on the day of judgment. And then he says, I ما أعددت لها but كثير العمل إلا أني أحب الله ورسوله. The only thing that makes me so confident in asking you when is the day of judgment is that I love God and His Messenger. And then he says, from the amount that I love you, Ya Rasulullah, because the Prophet asked him, وَإِلَى مَاذَا بَلَغَ حُبُّكَ? To what degree do you love me? Or do you love God and His Messenger? He says, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ نَبِيًّا. I swear by the God that sent you as a messenger. إِنَّ فِي قَلْبِي مِنْ حُبِّكَ. In my heart there's so much love for you that if I am cut into pieces by swords and then I'm put on a table and cut by a sword, وَنُشِرْتُ بِالْمَنَاشِيرِ قُطِّعْتُ بِالسُّيُوفِ وَنُشِرْتُ بِالْمَنَاشِيرِ وَقُرِطْتُ بِالْمَقَارِيدِ وَأُحْرِقْتُ بِالنِّيرَانِ. And then I'm burnt with fires. And all this is happening to me. كَانَ أَحَبَّ لِي وَأَسْهَلْ. All this is better for me and easier on me than what? مِنْ أَنْ أَجِدَ لَكَ فِي قَلْبِي غِشًّا أَوْ غِلًّا. It's better for me than to find a little bit of deceptiveness or a little bit of hatred for you in my heart.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
This is how much I love you, O Rasulullah. Then the Prophet said to him, he continued, he gave, as we call it, a fiery speech. He was on fire and he gave a fiery speech. A beautiful speech. I'm not going to read the whole hadith, but the response of Rasulullah, he said to him, Abshir, there's good news for you here. Be happy. Abshir means let your face be filled with smiles. Means I have a good news for you. فَإِنَّ الْمَرْءَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مَعَ مَنْ أَحَبَّ. Everyone on the day of judgment is gathered with those whom he loves. Simple. Very simple, but not as easy as it may sound. Because if you love them, as the famous poet in Arabic, he says, تَعْصِ الْإِلَهَ وَأَنْتَ تَزْعُمُ حُبَّهُ. You disobey God while you claim that you love Him. This is definitely a lie. Because those who love are obedient to their beloved, are pleasing to their beloved. They want to please their beloved. Can you love God and your effort is not in pleasing Him, instead you are displeasing God? Can you love the messenger of God and do everything against what He has ordered? That is impossible. Another story that I'll get to my majlis inshallah through this story is for a man that was carried at the time of Rasulullah. They were carrying a man to his grave. 4 men just carrying a body to the grave. There was no funeral, no attendees, nothing. And in fact, he was a slave. Slaves didn't have families, didn't have relatives, and perhaps some of them had not entered Islam, therefore there was no duty on Muslims to perform a funeral for them and to walk them to their graves. So the man was carried by 4 people, being taken to the grave. This riwayah is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, while that was happening, في ملء من أصحابه, then the Prophet said to them, علي بالأسود, bring me this slave. Bring him to me. The carriers brought the body, put it in front of the Prophet. He moved the cover of the face. He looked at him. And then he asked Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib عليه أفضل الصلوات والتحيات صلوا على محمد وآله. He says, يا علي هذا رباح غلام آل النجار. Oh Ali, this man, his name is Rubah. He's a slave of a family called Najjar, al-Najjar. Obviously Imam Ali alayhi salam knew the man. So the Prophet wanted to tell him who is the body, who is this dead body that they were taking to the grave so lonely, without any funeral, without any attendees. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen says, فقال علي عليه السلام والله ما رآني قط إلا وحجل في قيوده وقال يا علي إني أحبك. He says, I swear by God, not a single time this man saw me, but he couldn't contain himself. He was so happy that he was just jumping off the ground, could not contain himself from happiness, and he would say it every time, Ya Ali, I love you. Oh Ali, I love you. Believe me, brothers and sisters, by the time I finish this hadith, those of you who are in love with Amir al-Mu'mineen, with the Prophet, with Ahlul Bayt, for who they are, will be so glad and will want to have more and more and more of that love, will want to be like this man. When he sees Amir al-Mu'mineen, he jumps off the ground, cannot contain himself from happiness because of the love that he has for Amir al-Mu'mineen, because of his status that he gained. This man perhaps did not announce his Islam, pronounce his Shahada, a slave that to many meant nothing. You know, slavery existed then, it exists today in a different shape. I don't want to go deep into this, but one man once came and said to me, Sheikh, I envy you. I said, why? He says, you have, alhamdulillah, you have knowledge, and he was telling me some of the things that he thought I have. And he was saying, you know, I really envy you. I said, brother, I envy you. We don't know on the day of judgment who's going to be where. Perhaps with the little that you know, with the pure heart that you have, you may be in a way better position and situation than I am. Because all what I know adds to my responsibility. So if I have not purified my heart and worked on myself, I'm not any better than you. You might be in a much better position. Look at this man. The Prophet had so many companions. They were nothing but hypocrites. Quran speaks about them throughout the ayat. In Surah At-Tawbah, one of the companions, in fact the second Khalifa, he himself says about this surah. He says, when Surah At-Tawbah was revealed, we were so worried that it will not leave any of us. It was giving so much description that we thought it's going to get to every single one. This is the status of some of those around the Prophet, and they had a high status in their society. Some of them became the kings of their time. I don't want to call it Khalifa because Khilafah means, you know, successorship, and that's not what it is. It's kingdom. They were the kings of their time. They held the best position anyone could wish or dream for. But where are they? Some of them, for sure, they are dwelling in hellfire, dwellers of hellfire. On the other hand, this man, simple man, working hard, in love with Waliullah, in love with the friends of God. What happens? The Prophet says, bring him. He puts his own abaya as the shroud of this man. Then the Prophet prays Salatul Mayyit on him, meaning he's a Muslim. Do you get that? Salatul Mayyit is on those who submitted and are Muslim. He give him the clothes as a shroud. Then he prays Salatul Mayyit on him. Then he tells the believers with him, let's walk to his grave, let's attend his funeral. They walk. When they get to the grave, he says to the believers, did you hear so much noise? They said, yes, we heard more noise than what we are. The Prophet said there were 70,000 angels attending his funeral. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. Yes, this is what love brings in people. Because of the love, the strong love that they have. Another slave is a slave of Abu Dhar, famous slave of Abu Dhar, John. John was a slave purchased by Amir al-Mu'mineen, gifted to Abu Dhar. Abu Dhar had this slave until he was extradited from his city, from Medina. He had to go to Sham, and then he had to go to Rabada. Very difficult life Abu Dhar lived because of the cursed Umayyad family. Then, throughout all these trips, this John made sure he stays with Abu Dhar. Abu Dhar would tell him, you're free to go. I'm asked to go to exile. I'm not allowed to be in the city, but you can live your life. You're free to go. He would say, no. I was gifted by Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, to you to serve you. Therefore, until you're alive, I serve you. And he stayed with Abu Dhar all the way until Abu Dhar passed away. In fact, was martyred, Abu Dhar, because he was in exile because of his faith and his belief. Then he comes back to Medina, this time serving in the house of Imam Hassan, voluntarily. These people, Ahlul Bayt, would free them. They used a technique to free all the slaves. But they didn't want to be anywhere but in the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, in the house of Imam Hassan. He came and served Imam Hassan until Imam Hassan was martyred. Then he came and started serving Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Until Imam Hussein was on his trip to where? To Kufa. A trip that he knew, and I mentioned last night, Imam knew that this trip is to nothing but martyrdom. The end of this trip is martyrdom. The man comes with Imam Hussein all the way. Through good and bad, he's with Imam Hussein. This is what love brings in these people. He gets to Karbala with Imam Hussein. He gains a status through what he did that the present Imam, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, Imam Mahdi, in Ziyarat al-Nahiya, he says, As-salamu ala John Mawla Abu Dhar. A special salam in Ziyarat al-Nahiya. And in Ziyarah of the month of Rajab, Ziyarat Imam Hussein by Imam al-Hujjah in the month of Rajab. Some of the special, very special companions of Imam Hussein are mentioned by name in the ziyarah. One of them is John Mawla Abu Dhar. As-salamu ala. Imam is giving salam to this man, John Mawla Abu Dhar. Imagine the status that he gains because of his love and because of his loyalty to Imam. For the sake of God, he stayed with Imam. Imam was not the king of the time. Imam was not the richest person in the time, but he wanted to be with him because he's the man of God. He stayed with him. He continued being with him on the night of Ashura, the 9th night of Muharam. Imam allowed everyone to leave. He said, those who came with me, Jazahumullah al-khair. May God reward them the highest reward, but you're free to go. They said, no, we don't go. One of them, this Abu Dhar, Mawla Abu Dhar John. On the day of Ashura, he comes to Imam Hussein. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, when he saw that people, one after the other, the companions are going and getting martyred, he comes to Imam and he said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I know I'm a slave. I know, because back then, and not till probably till very recently, black people were not treated fairly. So he said, I know my color is black, and I'm a slave. I don't smell so good. Perhaps my blood shouldn't mix with your blood. But if you allow me, I want to go, and I want to be a servant in your house, and now I want to be a fighter in your army. I want to fight and give my blood, and as much as I can, be a supporter of you. Try and save you as much as I can, until I have a drop of blood in my veins. Imam says to him, John, you followed us in Raha. During good time, you followed us. But now this is not necessary for you. Go, be free, live your life, be fine. You don't have to do this. He says, أَنَا فِي الرَّخَاءِ أَلْحَسُ خِصَاعَكُمْ. In good times I follow you, and now through hardship you want me to leave you? No, by God, I will not leave you. Ya ibn Rasulullah, I will not leave you until I give my blood in your way. He goes and he becomes one of the martyrs that Imam al-Hujjah Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif gives his salam to this martyr. The narration, Imam Baqir alayhi salam says, after the tragedy of Karbala, for miles and miles, because Imam, when he was martyred, Imam walked to his body. Imam walked to his body and was praying for him. Prayed for him and said, Allahumma bayyid wajha wa tayyib riha. Oh God, he mentioned when he was speaking to Imam Hussein that I don't smell good. Imam said, oh God, make him have the heavenly smells. Tayyib ruha. People all around Karbala for miles and miles would smell a beautiful heavenly smell. Imam Baqir is saying that when they came to find out where the source of the smell, it was the body of John Mawla Abu Dhar. This is the state of those lovers for the sake of God. Sallallahu alayk ya madlum Karbala. Yes, Imam had these companions and they had him to come and pray on their bodies, pray for them. But who was there for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Ya Gharib, Ya Madlum. The last moments Imam was calling for help. Ala min nasirin yansurna. He's calling you, brothers and sisters. Ala min mu'inin yu'inuna. If Imam wants help, he wants help for those who want to gain nearness to God. If you gain nearness to God, this is the helping of your Imam. يقول الإمام الباقر صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أن هذا العبد المولى لأبا ذر عندما كان العاشر من المحرم جاء إلى أبي عبد الله قال له الإمام: أنت في إذن مني، فإنما تبعتنا طلبا للعافية، فلا تبتلي بطريقنا. قال له الإمام: قال: يا ابن رسول الله، أنا في الرخاء ألحس قصاعكم، وفي الشدة أخذلكم، والله إن ريحي لنتن وحسبي للئيم ولوني لأسود، فتنفس علي بالجنة فيطيب ريحي ويشرف حسبي ويبيض وجهي. لا والله لا أفارقكم حتى يختلط هذا الدم الأسود مع دمائكم. أذن له الإمام فبرز مرتجزا: كيف ترى الفجار ضرب الأسود بالسيف صلتان عن بني محمد، أذب عنهم باللسان وباليد، أرجو بالجنة يوم المورد، حتى قتل رضوان الله تعالى عليه. جاء إلى مصرع الإمام الحسين قائلا: اللهم بيض وجهه وطيب ريحه واحشره مع الأبرار، وعرف بينه وبين محمد وآل محمد. أقول: كيف كان حالك يا أبا عبد الله، ملقا على تربان، ملقا على التراب على وجهه، رحم الله من نادى وإماما وحسينا وشيدا، نادى بأعلى صوت قال: إن كنتم أعرابا إن كنتم لا تخافون المعاد، فكونوا أعرابا كما تزعمون. قال اللعين: شمر، ما تقول يا ابن فاطمة؟ قال له: ما دمت في الحياة فلا تدعوا عتاتكم يأتوا إلى خيم الحرام. قال له: لك ذلك. ثم أتوا عليه من كل جانب، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون، والعاقبة للمتقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء، 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. يا الله إلهي يا مجيب المضطر، يا الله يا كاشف السوء، يا الله اكشف عنا سوءنا بفرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. Oh Allah, make us amongst the companions of Imam al-Hujjah Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Oh Allah, cure all the patients of mu'mineen and mu'minat, those who asked us for prayers hasten their recovery. O Allah, send your mercy and blessings to all the souls of those who have passed away from our gathering, mu'mineen and mu'minat, especially those who try hard in these majalis, those who were with us before and tried hard to continue and keep this flame of Ashura. We pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send mercy to their souls. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, brothers, if you come forward, I have a short English eulogy or Latmiya, inshallah. You can respond with me as well. If you come forward and stand up in lines.
تفضلوا اخوان تفضلوا. هل كتبت شيء بينك وبين البغدادي؟ في ورقة.
Inshallah, respond with me. حسين يا حسين 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 حسين يا حسين. What is it with the world? Sadness everywhere. Muharam is here, Muharam is there. What is it with the world? Sadness everywhere. Muharram is here and Muharram is there. Strengthen us, O Lord, so that we shall bear. Back to school we go and learn how to dare. Back to school we go and learn how to dare. Master of Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Teacher is Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Master is Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Beloved Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Beloved Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Everybody say, 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 Hussein ya Hussein. Raise your hand and say, Hussein ya Hussein. Everybody say, Hussein ya Hussein. Everybody say, Hussein ya Hussein. Everybody say, Hussein ya Hussein. What is it with the world? Sadness everywhere. Muharram is here and Muharram is there. Strengthen us, O Lord, so that we shall bear. Back to school we go and learn how to dare. Back to school we go and learn how to dare. Teacher is Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Master is Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Lover is Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Beloved Hussein, Hussein ya Hussein. Everybody say, 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 Hussein ya Hussein.
أحسنت يا أخي أحسنتم جزاكم الله خير.